My name's Jeremiah Taylor. My Muslim name that I chose is Mujahid Kareem. I grew up in a small town and I was part of a typical Māori family in a small town, and I had uncles that went hunting and had grandparents that lived on a farm, played rugby league like every other small town kid. Well, my mother was a practicing Christian. My parents were married in a church, and I was at the age of, I would say from memory, 4 or 5. So yeah, I went to Sunday school as a kid from the ages of probably 5 to 8 years old. And my father's family, which is my Māori family, or my Māori side of my family, weren't really religious, but they had a lot of, I guess, practicing similarities to Islam. Like with karakia and having prayer before food, killing animals and stuff like that, and like going to a marae. It's really similar to going to a mosque where you'd be really quiet and respect elders. I would say there's a lot of similarities between the Māori culture and Islam, and that's what kind of made my transition easy as well. I'd say more similarities would be, just kind of a big one would be the kind of way that Māori tradition and culture view women, and the type of respect you have to have towards women, and I guess there would be a lot of stereotypical views that would say the opposite, but I would say they don't know my culture better than me. So, and yeah, with Islam, there's a lot of respect towards women, especially elder people, women and males. I guess more similarities would be with regards to just respect, like with people, like a lot of similarities with elders, like respecting elders and just to respect each other and stuff like that. I would say the similar cultural aspect between Māori and Islam would be pork, because a lot of Māori, I guess families, in my family included, do a lot of wild boar hunting and stuff like that. So I grew up eating pork. So I'm the eldest of 4 siblings. I have 2 younger brothers and 1 younger sister. The youngest, my sister, she would be 19 at the moment, and I'm 25 years old. And I'm the only Muslim in my family at the moment. Well, actually, surprisingly, I actually haven't mentioned it. Last week, my uncle told me he wants to become a Muslim, and not many people actually know that. So I'm sure by the time a lot of people watch this video, they will know, especially in my family. So yeah, it's going to be a surprise for them. So from a transition from a very young age to being a teenager, I grew up in this small town, kind of closed off from the world. I knew, there was bigger cities and other countries that existed and stuff like that, but to me it was just, all my family were living in this town. Everything started from there, and then from the age of, I would say 12 to 13, when I went into a secondary school age, my father, who knew better than me at that time, or probably still as well, can't say that, he sent me off to a boarding school in South Auckland called Wesley College. And that was a Methodist Christian school. So that's when I started, I guess from the young age when I went to Sunday school and stuff with my parents, with my mother, because she was a European, and then my parents divorced when I was at the age of 8 years old. And I would say when my dad took custody of me and my other siblings, we stopped going to church and stuff like that. And then when I went to boarding school, I went back to that church kind of lifestyle, and it was a big push because at that school we went to church, every day, Monday to Friday, twice on Sunday. And for me initially, I would have to say I really liked it. And now in hindsight, because hindsight's a really beautiful thing, I would say that those Christian values and kind of initial feelings that I had with religion kind of pushed me back to religion after I, went to university, whatever. But yeah, that's later on in the story. And so yeah, I went to the boarding school, and it was a really new experience for me, because initially I only grew up around just normal European Pākehā kids and Māori kids, and then all of a sudden there was all these Pacific Islanders and all these other races, and I would say I was really interested initially, and just it kind of opened up the world for me, because I realized this world is full of a lot of different people. And yeah, the Christian school was it taught me a lot of things, like respect, and just how to treat your fellow man, and things like that. And I would say, Christianity does have a lot of core, like fundamental positives there. But then after that, when I started to get doubts and stuff, I started to question. That came with maturity and growing up and stuff. That did a lot. Well, I guess that did a lot for me, and that's pretty much what made me become a Muslim in the end, was just my own curiosity. The environment at the school, I would say, yeah, it did bring me closer to God, because of the whole, like, with Sundays especially, or even during the week where, always had to be clean and be dressed up, even though we were at a boarding school and it was just full of, male students. It's like, the teachers and everyone said, it's good to grow up. And, like, it was pretty much just taught me how to be, a gentleman and be tidy and respect people and stuff like that. And yeah, it was pretty good, I would have to say. And but then I would say that the people around it, the people at the school, I grew up with like a lot of Pacific Island. I had a lot of Pacific Island friends. I still have those friends, and they were Christians from a young age, just like me. But they had constantly grown up with it, with their families taking them to church and stuff. And I saw a lot of, I guess, would you say, practicing contradictions with people. They say, oh, we got to be nice to people. Treat others how you would treat yourself and stuff like that. And I kind of didn't see that through a lot of practicing Christians, And I would say, I'd probably say the same with Muslims, but that's just, we're all human. We're not angels. We're all imperfect, And I guess, God's the only judge of that. So the best we can do is strive our best and be the best humans we can be. So when I finished boarding school, my family, we're still living in Kaurau in the Bay of Plenty, like my father, my siblings, and the brother after me, he was at the school with me. And all my grandmother, my aunties, uncles and cousins, they still live there, and they were there at the time as well. And then my family, my dad or my immediate family, you would say, moved over to Sydney. And from there, that's when I left school and then came to university, little small Māori kid into the big wide city, and it was, I wouldn't say scary, but it was a relished opportunity for me. And I guess that was the downfall. So, just kind of, you see, like, oh, my dad's not looking after me, I can do whatever I want. And that's when, you do what every other university students do and just make new friends and, go to parties, start drinking, drugs, sex, and a lot of other stuff, So it was a big change for me. For me, it was, I just wanted to become successful at university just to help my father and my family, just, help them, because we didn't come from, I would say, a wealthy background. And it initially didn't affect me, and I would say I mildly went into it and started doing that kind of, say bad stuff or haram stuff at that time, and then eventually it kind of the hill steepened, and then I started getting more repetitive into it and started getting really deep into it. And I guess a big turning point for me was in my third year of university. I went on a 6-month exchange to England. I went to Europe for an exchange, and yeah, as people know, England is, I guess, the place where parties go wild. And that's when, the first 2 years of uni, I was a real, top class student and stuff like that. And I still, had the odd drink or two with friends. But I would say once I came back from there after that 6 months, that's when I just, just let loose, you would say. And my parents, my dad was still in Sydney and stuff like that. And my last 2-3 years of uni, that combined with, my dad going through diabetes and sickness and stuff, is would be I would say a real downtime, depressed as well. And I just saw drugs and alcohol, that kind of stuff as a mask, a way of hiding it, and just just pretending nothing bad was happening. Initially, I came across Islam. Well, I guess the first point would be when I met my first Muslim. The time I probably met my first Muslim was in my first 2 weeks of university. I met an Afghani brother of mine, and he's still my good close friend to this day. And I would say, then, like I said before, we're not all best practicing humans, like in general, with, excluding religion itself. And we did stuff together, and he had other friends, and I met other Afghani friends and Iraqi friends and stuff like that, Middle Eastern people that were Muslims. And then I would say from the change from going to a boarding school, a Christian background, and then coming to university, I became agnostic. you know, I still believe that there was a higher power and stuff like that in the universe, but it was more kind of, you know, religion is just a big lie. And with them have been my friends, you know, they wouldn't, I wouldn't say they kind of like talked about it around me, but if it did come up, it would be like, I would say something and they'd get offended, but they wouldn't say anything. And alhamdulillah, you know, to this day, I'm thankful they didn't, because I probably would have been distracted from, or, you know, wouldn't have liked Islam even more. And then it did take, I would say, a long time. I would say like, you know, 3 to 4 years for me to kind of have it in myself to finally accept that, you know, this is something that 1.7 billion out of 7 billion people in the world follow. So how can it be a lie, kind of thing? And, you know, just kind of started questioning it and going to look for it myself, and asked my friends, you know, oh, do you have any books I could read? You know, not saying I want to become a Muslim, just, you know, because I'm interested to see like what point of views and perspectives you guys actually have and why you guys think this way. And from there, that's, I would say, in my last year of university, that's when I started, you know, when I said things started getting repetitive with the bad ways. And then my friend actually gave me one small book about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. So I would say with regards to Islam, I knew a lot about, you know, from the previous experiences with Christianity, you know, with like Jesus and all the other prophets, you know, Noah, Abraham, Adam, that are all mentioned throughout the Bible. I already knew quite a lot about them. And the big thing that changed my perspective of Islam was when I read about that book and started learning about the characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I would say, like, you know, his characteristics, well, they weren't really hard to figure out, because they were really similar to, you know, the other prophets of Christianity that I had read about. But a big thing for me was I started to realize the stigma that, like, the Western media and, you know, stereotypes that people had in the whole world, I guess, had towards this image or this person, and you know, well, I guess he's the picture of Islam, you know, like, it was just totally distorted, the perspectives that everybody had. And I started to think about it, you know, just like, why? And then, you know, I started to, you know, I guess I'm a really curious person, and started to see, you know, like, this world is not exactly what everyone thinks it is. And it's just, you know, a big world built on lies and, you know, just people that are just deceiving other people. And to find the truth, you know, you got to look around, but also look inside yourself, because in the end, you know, that's actually what made me become a Muslim. When I, you know, looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look myself in the mirror, but, you know, you look at yourself honestly and you ask yourself, you know, like, do you think God exists? It's quite amazing when you think about it, you know, like, this one person, his message spread, you know, far and wide, and now that the biggest civilization of, you know, Islamic society is nowhere near where it started from. And that's proof just to how strong and, I guess, truthful that the message is in itself. And yeah, with the books, it was a lot of, like, you know, you have like scientific facts from the Quran. It took a lot of, I would say, I have to be honest, it took a lot to convince me, because I'm a really, I would say, you know, not a doubtful person, but just, I question a lot of things, and it took a lot for me to convince myself especially. And there's, you know, there's a lot of scientific facts in the Quran that, like, people, you know, you read it and you think to yourself, how can this guy from 7th century Arabia in a desert know the stuff that scientists in the last 50 to 100 years are just discovering? And, you know, some people are not convinced by it, some people are, and I was one of those people that were. So yeah, when I became a Muslim and I performed my Shahada, initially the first 2-3 months I didn't really tell my family. I wouldn't say out of fear that they'll, you know, ostracize me and kind of cut me away from the family. Nothing like that. It was just more like, I was just, you know, checking myself that, you know, like, did I make the right decision? And to be honest, since then I haven't, like, turned back and looked back. And the good thing about my family is, because I'm the eldest in my generation, and I would say, well, I wouldn't say it, like, not being arrogant or anything, but I'm the only person in my family that's in my generation that's got a tertiary qualification. And so they see me as, you know, I wouldn't say the golden boy, but, you know, this guy, he knows what he's doing. He has head on his shoulders, you know, he's not making stupid decisions. So they were, you know, they're happy for me. And I have, like, my dad, my father, even to this day, you know, he asked me questions about Islam, you know, inshallah, Allah guides him to the straight path, you know, and he asked me questions, and I would say he's taking a dig at the religion as well, but, you know, I understand that because, you know, I'm his son, and I understand that because I did the exact same thing to my friends, you know, like, what is this? Why do you guys do this? And not to, I would say not to prove them wrong, but just to prove myself to myself, like, you know, like, is this real or not? And, you know, I had a lot of families, like uncles and, well, all my family that eat pork, you know, so there's like that kind of stigma that they have, you know, like, oh, we don't want to become Muslim because we have to stop eating pork. Since I became a Muslim, personally, my life, I would say, has gotten much better. In the last year and a half since I've been a Muslim, I've lost, I would say, 20 kgs. And that was just because I've stopped drinking and stopped eating pork, but I would say mostly the drinking. And I feel much better, you know, as a human. I see a lot of things differently now with regards to, you know, if I go to like, if well, I haven't been, I'll have a couple of times, but you know, if I go to town or something and I see people in clubs, you know, you actually see the stuff that I'm reading about, you know, it's not like a doctrine where, you know, people are saying like, you should believe this, you should believe this. It's kind of like, you know, this is what it is, take a look for yourself. And like, do you see, you know, like, what do you see kind of thing? And that's when, you know, you just have to be honest with yourself and just ask yourself, you know, like, what am I doing, etc., etc. So yeah, no, my life has become much better. Since when I first started university, it was, you know, I was a real, I would say a grounded person, and then I started getting a bit wild. And I wouldn't say I was the most, I was a pretty smart kid, and I could see myself losing a lot of, you know, the gifts that God had given me, you know, with my brain and stuff like that. I was losing it all. And then now, alhamdulillah, I became a Muslim, you know, I've got a good job, and now I'm in a position where I can help my family, especially my father. And it's good. Yeah, no, it's really good. I'm really happy. Islam is a really, I wouldn't say easy, but there's a lot of like ways around, you know, like which, like, you know, there's a lot of answers to everyday life, and you know, people, you know, like especially I have a lot of like a lot of people in my family are, you know, alcoholics and drug addicts and stuff like that, and me myself being one, well, I used to be one, like I know what Islam can offer and how it can help people. You know, you don't have to like go straight clean, you know, oh, I have to stop doing drugs because God says in the Quran that you can't smoke drugs. You know, like we're all human. It's a struggle, you know, and that's where the word jihad comes from, you know. And everybody, that's another big stereotype a lot of people have is with the word jihad. And I would probably say I was one of those people, you know, it's, oh, jihad is when people go out to war and kill people in the name of God and they get to go to heaven. And a lot of people even have this perspective, you know, like that's just a ridiculous kind of thought. And I probably have to agree with you, but there's always context in the situation, you know, like there's, because jihad itself, when it doesn't actually mean, you know, go fight, it actually means, like, you know, if you translate it to English, it means the word struggle. And you can have a lot of struggles in life, you know, struggles against your own desires, against a lot of things, you know, like this, it's not just struggling against, you know, oppression and stuff like that, it's, the smaller struggle is still a jihad, you know, so I would say, yeah, there's a lot of solutions in Islam that, that people can take from it. And it will most definitely, you know, affect them in a very good way. And I've even seen a lot of this, you know, this with my own eyes, like this has happened to a lot of people, myself included, you know. So for me, I don't think I need much more proof. So, you know, alhamdulillah, I'm really thankful. One thing I probably want to add is, like, you know, with people that are looking for religion or, you know, a way to God, a pathway to God and stuff like that, you know, you have a lot of stereotypical doubts and media telling you things. My biggest advice would be go and look at it for yourself. Search within yourself, you know, and ask yourself serious questions, you know, like, why am I here? What's the purpose of life? Stuff like that, you know, and just go and talk to people. Come talk to me if you want. Go talk to the other Muslims, you know, like, I'm not going to say we want to, you know, convert you. We all do hope that. But, you know, that's also another hadith saying of the Prophet Muhammad is that there's no compulsion in religion. And, you know, everybody has their own path, and only God guides those people that, you know, that are truly, I guess, in the end become Muslims.